this is the greatest untold story in all of Kingdom. We all know that Hara has an ocean of great characters that can't always actually be explored in the manga because we don't have all the time in the world. But there is one character in particular that we never got to see, whose story might be far more intriguing than anyone else that never made it to the main page. A character with one of the most important laws in Kingdom, who shaped one of the largest conflicts in the entire story, and who was in his prime one of the most powerful generals in existence. This is the untold story of Great General Hakuki, the greatest of the past 6 great generals of Qin. Hakuki was revealed in the manga to be the most difficult opponent that Renpa has faced to date out of the Qin 6 greats. Being that these 6 generals hold the greatest prestige out of all the military tandems, and Renpa is arguably the strongest general alive, it might be safe to say that Hakuki was one of China's toughest opponents, period, regardless of his titles. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, as there is a far deeper lore around the character that can be pieced together with a little help from history and tiny context clues spread throughout the main story. See, Hakuki was not just a great general, he was in fact once China's most dangerous figure, above even Oki. Whereas Oki, despite being feared across China, was able to seek out the respect and almost weird camaraderie of his most terrible enemies, it seems like Hakuki was all business, always focused on the task at hand. It seems like Hakuki himself was likely as close as anyone can get to the most perfect general of all, worthy of being Qin's greatest and finest. And most interestingly, it seems that this almighty general, China's greatest, was defeated by none other than himself, specifically following the notorious tragedy in Chohei, nearly 20 years before the kingdom story even began. That's right, piecing it all together, this might truly be the most intriguing hidden tale in all of Kingdom, of a terrifying, brutal man who by far eclipses Kanki as China's demon. So let's break down the story of Kingdom's greatest lost character, Hakuki. To begin with, how do we know that Hakuki was China's greatest general, and the one who may very well have laid out the military archetype for Kanki, one of Qin's elite generals? For starters, the name Hakuki itself is eternally tied to a most devastating event, the tragedy of Chohei. Here, fearing rebellion as the reason for his actions, Hakuki buried alive 400,000 surrendered soldiers, but really it was for the sake of complete victory. And of course, Kanki himself similarly has an unforgettable villainous event of his own, being the period following the Battle of Aku, where he beheaded hundreds of thousands of surrendered soldiers, and also cited the danger of rebellion as his reason. Well, Marin did on his behalf. So, Kanki being yet another ruthless character immediately makes it likely that Hara was hinting at some connection to Hakuki. And this connection becomes obvious after breaking down all the nuances between history and the manga. First of all, the similarities are beyond uncanny, creating an archetype. Both generals focus on winning by any means, being completely unapologetic when it comes to seeking out any method of warfare possible in which to dominate the enemy. It's not enough to just win. Both in their own right are acknowledged as geniuses of warfare, and finally, even their monikers are alike. Hakuki known as the Human Butcher, and Kanki as the Beheader. See, historically, we are also told that Hakuki was one of the 4 greatest generals during the Warring States, alongside Osen, Renpa, and Roboku. Now, these things all but guarantee that Qin's enemy states were brought down to their knees by Hakuki due to these 2 reasons. First, the simple fact that Renpa, alongside Kyoen, one of his heavenly kings, noted Hakuki as the hardest to deal with, literally pissing off Renpa in every battle by countering him at every turn. This would simply be impossible to rationalize as anything else but the behavior of the greatest. Remember, Renpa is now China's strongest general that apparently cannot be bested by the likes of Roboku, who Renpa says, China's strongest, is actually China's current most dangerous figure after Hakuki. In no other discussion do you see 2 generals give each other flowers and call each other China's greatest, glazing, only for one to think of none other than Hakuki when his back is against the wall, and the real truth comes out. However, this was not the case for Kanki when he met his end by Roboku's hands during the Northern Shao invasion, because if you take a small gander at Hakuki's military career historically, he supposedly did not suffer a single defeat, so naturally he is expected to be the greatest ever. Oki, bested by Roboku. Osen, bested by Roboku. Now Kanki, bested by Roboku, who acknowledged Renpa, who then acknowledged Hakuki. There is no presence of pure domination. Their success may have all been random because they lost. That's it. Hakuki has not one defeat on his entire military pedigree. It doesn't matter how much Oki, Osen, Kanki, or even Roboku have won. They still lost at some point in their career. It's literally only if General Rishin at the end of Kingdom Story becomes an abnormality, where all these officers somehow become ancient news, which in itself is a rare possibility. But so is the first unification of China, which supposedly Shin accomplishes, making him the only one that eventually, if we get there, surpasses Hakuki. But for now, he hasn't yet. Hakuki's prowess is so insane. What are the chances that these 4 officers all coincidentally have only lost once? I'm not counting the coalition for Roboku, that was a team effort. It's logically impossible, unless there exists a man that has never lost. And so enter Great General Hakuki, the leader of the 6 great generals of Qin. If you have an elite group of generals near flawless, and you have a character who specifically has had nothing in the story negative about them, and they are already thematically tied to said elite generals, well then there is a clear connection. After all, there must be some reason why Hakuki had the honor of being the leader of Qin's 6 greats, despite King Sho holding the most love for Oki. You can only have one leader, so Hakuki must have been so formidable it overruled this love. Or else why not make Oki the leader of a group that you supposedly trust with your dearest dream? The simple answer is that Hakuki is the greatest, and he must have been the biggest contributor to King Sho's dream of unification, raw dogging Xiao and all them other boys, because literally every other general mentioned has suffered some type of defeat. This is it. These are China's greatest generals, and they all do not hold a candle to Hakuki. If several years ago there was such a dominating character, and now every great general today concedes to him in some way, that means factually there is some merit to Hakuki being China's greatest. The only possibilities are if Hakuki ever lost, Qin somehow conveniently took a page out of Roboku's book and their information lockdown was better, but it is his specialty. Or Hakuki was actively dicking down all of Qin's enemies from the beginning. This explanation would perfectly fit with Hakuki's actions and motivations. As we know, after all, he is the leader, and he historically proves so, winning every battle because, like Osen, though he only fights battles he knows he can win, that was just every single battle. This may as well be the entire point of Hakuki's character. China was subject to this man's dominance, trying as many methods as possible to stop him to no avail. Of course, it makes sense that this man was the most powerful because it brings us to our second interesting point, which is Hara must have intended for parallels between Roboku and Hakuki. Hear me out. Symbolically, Hakuki is to Renpa what Roboku is to Shin. Throughout his entire military career, Shin has gotten so close to defeating Roboku, China's strongest and his greatest enemy. The same can be said for Renpa. Like Roboku, no matter the bait laid down, Hakuki would respond and counter in the most calm and calculated manner, taking no risk whatsoever. And Renpa, who always got so close, would chase too far only to lose. Sound familiar? For Shin and Renpa, defeating Roboku and Hakuki respectively would essentially mark their grand ascension as the greatest China has to offer. Considering all the other signs that already point to Hakuki being China's #1, much like Roboku is currently, this final parallel of Hakuki's role in Renpa's story being similar to Roboku's role in Shin's story seems to make it all the more certain. Yes, surprise prediction. I'm saying Shin will get so close but will ultimately never defeat Roboku. Like Hakuki, I think with Xiao at its end, Roboku will take his own life because of his idiot king. So though Roboku is up there, Hakuki truly is the greatest kingdom character we never met. Did you enjoy this video? Check out my other videos. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated on my latest videos. I appreciate you guys.